and welcome you to the call. Please at any time let me know if you don't want to be recorded, and I will make sure that we don't use that recording. But some of the facilitators do listen to the recordings afterwards when they can't make it along to a meeting. So yeah, but it's great to have you here this morning. We are talking about the future, and I'm just going to bring up my slides. I've got a couple of speakers lined up, which is great to have you guys there. So yep, Zoom call number 15, focusing on the future. We have just a couple of ground rules. So if you're not talking, please mute, just gets rid of all the background noise. Keep your videos on because it's always nice to see people. Unless your internet is an issue, then completely understand, turn off video. It does seem to make a difference on Zoom. And please use the chat box for any questions or comments. And I know a few of you have found the chat box already. Let us know what the weather's been like where you are. So that's really good. So, but please, yeah, keep using the chat box. We keep monitoring it. So a little bit of an outline for today is, first of all, we'll do our usual couple of short rounds of introductions so you get to know who's on the call. And then we're going to do a bit of an update on the level 2 changes, which take effect from midday on Friday. Yay, basically the headline is we're on, action groups are on face-to-face, so that's really cool. The future, and then we'll get into the discussion on the future. So we've got Brendan lined up giving us a bit of an overview from RMPP and what some of the evaluation and feedback from groups has been overall. And then Stephen is going to talk about his example, his group, one of his groups that have successfully transitioned to self-funding. And then Taffy's going to share his thoughts as well, and things he's been doing to just get this conversation kind of into the discussion and into the action group discussion. We've got a couple of workshop questions, so a workshop question to start and then an ORID, because I thought it would be a good idea not only to practice the ORID, but to have a go through with what we learnt and what we found out from the call. Next week, I'm thinking and working with Taffy and Lab to build up a bit of a workshop around building our soft skills, based on the UMR call from last week, where building trust and that facilitation role came up as being really important. So we'll keep you posted with that for next week. Let me know if there's any questions at any time. The other thing, apologies too, I don't know if anyone else realized, I didn't realize until I looked this morning at the appointment that I put it down for 2 hours. Yeah, it's only an hour, so you've got extra time. So, yeah, and hi, Nicola, great to have you. So yeah, so apologies for that, but as usual, we will hang around at the end of the call. So if you do have any specific questions or things that came up that haven't been answered, please hang on at the end. We're very happy to chat to you beyond that, but we will be finishing at 11:30. So next time I'll double check that. All right, and also just hello to Hugh Galvin, who isn't an action group facilitator. Yep, Hugh's on my top right, but I don't know where he is on your screen. Hugh's from Sports NZ, and he's just taking part in these facilitator calls in the lead up to the virtual facilitator forum, which kicks off on the 29th of June. We've got Ruth Nettle and John James from Australia at the start of that week, and then Hugh on the 3rd of July at the end of that week to kick off the facilitator forum. So there will be more information coming soon. The website is just about there and ready to launch. You'll be getting some emails and details about it. And anyone that you know in the facilitation space, they don't have to be action group facilitators. Please feel free to spread the word and get them involved if they're keen. So we will send out more information. But yeah, thanks for joining us, Hugh, and it's good to have you on board. Cool. Alrighty. Without further ado, I need to send you into breakout rooms so that you can get to know who's in the room. So I'm going to create the rooms and just spend a couple of minutes introducing yourselves, where you are, your action group involvement, and maybe something you're looking forward to for the long weekend, because it's the long weekend in level 2. Woo! So I'll open all the rooms and off you go.
Denise, was the facilitator forum 29th of June?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, cool. I'll put message you on there.
No worries, thank you.
I'll go in a second. Sorry.
Oh, no, all good. And actually, we might need to do that when everyone comes back again, because they might not see that chat. So
Cool.
we might repeat it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. I'll jump into this room and see his Matt.
Yep. Cool. Welcome back, everyone. Cool. Excellent. Yep. Definitely. Now, just a couple of questions. Sorry about the freaking out of the 2-hour time frame, Nicola, but it is only an hour, so all good there. And the 29th of June is when the Facilitator Forum kicks off. So we will get you some more details, and there will be lots more information come out, and registrations and different bits and pieces. It's free. It'll be a free event. But the 29th of June and then the 3rd of July. So 2 events for the first week, with Ruth Nettle, John James starting us off, and Hugh at the end of the week. Cool. Alrighty. I have just mixed you up again. So another couple of minutes just to introduce yourselves to a couple of different people. Sorry, managed to do that one again.
It might have been deliberate.
I see that popped up on the screen in the last breakout room, Denise, and I could see all the different people in the different rooms.
Because I've made you co-host.
Oh yeah. Oh cool.
Yeah. So I don't know whether you can control it, but you can see.
Right.
I think. Yeah.
Where's it gone now?
So if I bring it
breakout
up.
room.
Yeah. So I think I have to bring it up for you to see it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Engagement's a big challenge for us, isn't it, with this?
Yes.
In light of that conversation with Sharon.
Yep.
Who was in your breakout room, Brendan? I can't remember now. It was just
Sarah Jamison.
Sarah, yeah, that's the one.
Your mate.
Yeah.
She's just wishing there would be a bit more time. I just told her to not give up praying.
Oh, for groups to form and stuff. Yep, it's fair. Yeah. I can drop you into another group if you want to join another group.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I think it's just that it's taking a wee bit of time with those groups, just because they've got a set people that are in that sort of area of the catchment, and because it's been in we've been in lockdown, like some of those farmers that are not completely sure what the go is, and we can't get the groups going until we've got those at least 5 farmers.
Yeah.
And then there's that Cardrona one's like ready to go, but there's potentially one more farmer that's in the lower part of the catchment that they need to get in contact with. So
yeah,
just taking a wee bit of time, unfortunately.
Fair enough. All right, sorry, I'm just going to leave the breakout room and head back to the main session. Hi everyone, back again. Welcome back. Woohoo. Welcome back everyone. Excellent. Alrighty. So hopefully you've had a chance to get to know a few people on the call, which is always the idea around the couple of rounds of introductions. The next thing on our agenda was the changes to level 2. So the government has said from midday on Friday, groups of up to 100 are okay. So basically action groups face-to-face are good to go. We'll be sending a communication around to primary contact farmers and facilitators just to confirm all of this before, hopefully before lunchtime on Friday. But just a couple of things to keep in mind, that you do still need to keep lists of everyone who attends your face-to-face meeting in case of the need for contact tracing. If you are at a venue, you just need to work with the venue to make sure that they've got that list, so that if anything happens, they've got the ability to contact trace, and that they may have some restrictions around 100 people at a time at that venue. So just to be aware of that and to work with the venue, they'll be able to sort that with you. And for most of you, it probably shouldn't be a problem, but just to think about catering and be careful about hygiene and all of those kinds of things. So if you've got more specific questions, please let us know. But generally speaking, practice the good hygiene, keep the list of attendees, and we are good with face-to-face meetings for action groups, which is very good news. Please feel free to chuck anything in the chat box if you do have specific questions, or if you think of anything later. Cool. Alrighty. Well, the next part and the main part of our time today is thinking about and preparing for the future for action groups. We're aware that the seed funding from RMPP only goes at the moment till the end of September. And so how can we have these conversations with groups to prepare them for the future and to think about what might be useful? So we've got Brendan kicking us off from RMPP to give us a bit of an overview, and then we'll have Stephen and then Taffy. So Brendan, I'm going to hand over to you now. Thank you. Oh, and please, if you have questions at any point, chuck them into the chat box and we'll stop and address those as we go.
Thanks, Denise. Do you just mind allowing screen sharing for me, please?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Cool. Actually.
Yeah, hi everyone. You'll let me know when that's sorted, Denise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, just look, we just thought we'd give a bit of context from an RMPP perspective, and I guess give you a bit of an update for a feel for Action Network a bit broadly, but also just to support the thinking around this transition to the future post RMPP. So to help stimulate, support some of that thinking.
You should be able to share now, Brendan.
Thank you. Yep, sure can.
And welcome, Sarah Bell, is it? Just joined the call. Great to have you.
Cool. Can everyone see that screen? Sweet. Oops. Yeah, so just to begin with, around the timeline, and was alluded to, and I guess just to correct a wee bit of a slip up and getting ahead of myself a couple of sessions ago in relation to when is activity okay to be performed. It's up until the 30th of September. We just slightly got ahead of ourselves when we said October. So that's where we're at in that respect. Look, also, our evaluation, as we touched on with Mark last week, there's some really good signs coming through, really positive in terms of our overall evaluation. And we're getting into a position where we're starting to be able to share some of that with you. And I think as we go through this, find some of this quite helpful when we're having conversations with groups. So, we look forward to sharing a bit more of that soon. And I'll touch on some of it just through this update here as well. Look, to give you just a feel for some of the numbers, so, the scale of Action Network, I guess, we've over the course of the program, approved 204 groups. It's a pretty cool milestone, we believe. And, as I'm indicating there's still approximately another 10 that we know in the process of forming. And I guess for me, that's really demonstrating that people are still seeing the value and learning about and understanding from others the value of the small group learning and support approach. So that's really positive. Some other numbers around groups or attrition, I guess. We've had 10 over the course of the program that have disestablished, and that's been for various reasons. For example, 3 of those have merged. Some of those, it's just been poor engagement within the group, just hasn't worked. And in a couple of cases, they've had quite a narrow focus to begin with, and they've just come to a natural end. It's done its course, but they still got value from it. Individual attrition, members leaving groups, a lot of that's to do with availability of time, or the perceived availability of time by farmers, some personal circumstances in some cases, or the group's just hasn't been a fit. But as you can see there also in the bottom row, there have been a number of groups that have exited one group and gone and found something that's more relevant for them. So that's really positive as well. Now, in terms of attrition overall, we've learned from some other programs that are expecting 20% in the realms of 20% attrition is normal. So we're pretty happy with those sort of numbers. Moving forward, just to give you an idea where some of the groups are at in terms of their funding, there's 29 of them there that have got less than $5,000 of their funding remaining. However, some of those groups have got funding that's just been suspended because of the action plan incompletion, but that's on the improve, so I expect that to change a little bit. There are 5 that have exhausted their funds, and all of those groups are continuing on into the future, and so they've got a pathway forward, which is also really positive. So I guess when I reflect on this, what are we really dealing with? And for me, I think it's about having conversations around value. And we need to be asking ourselves, why are we doing this? And I believe Action Network, the facilitation of small group learning and the support, it's all about adding value for farmers. And as facilitators, it's through supporting a positive action group experience and also supporting the farmers develop themselves and their businesses and helping them grow. I think the key emphasis is really looking at the value farmers are getting and the groups are getting from working together. Just to give you another flavour of some of our evaluation also, we've had some independent practice change evaluation performed. It's not finalised, so we can't release that yet, but we're certainly seeing it in the near complete state. The majority of those case studies are showing some significant economic benefit. And on average, there's 55% attribute the net gain to the action group participation. And that's in a range of people ranging 20% through to 100% attribution. Quite interesting stuff, really. Also, the qualitative sort of benefits that are coming through in these case studies are aligning to the UMR work that's being done quite independent of that. So that's also interesting. And just to give another flavour of what's coming through, you know, the dreaded 6-monthly survey that we have farmers perform for us and you guys as well. Just to give you a wee bit of a view of that. Look, you know, these next couple of slides is data that relates to the CASA level 6 of Bennett's evaluation framework. So the knowledge, aspiration, skills and attitudes side of things. You could more commonly refer to that, I guess, as the impact of the Action Network is having on the human capability side of things. We've asked, got 4 questions, and this first one is you know, around the knowledge. Have farmers learnt something new as being part of the action group that's helped them achieve their goals? And there's an upward trend there, albeit it's probably started out quite strongly as well. It is trending upwards, and the middle block there, the solid block, is you're seeing that condensing, so it's strengthening. And what we're also seeing is the data through the survey strengthens as more of the groups are going through that life cycle. Their attitudes, do farmers feel more in control of their own destiny through being involved? Once again, there's an upward trend there. Has the action group helped them grow their farm business skills? Again, an upward trend in the condensing towards the top end. Has the group action network been motivational to farmers? I think you could argue here, you know, in hindsight, when you put these sort of evaluation questions together, that for people to participate in Action Network, they're probably quite motivated to begin with, but it's continued through the program and condensing towards over time, as we can see there. And we do ask the cost benefit question. You know, would farmers pay to continue participating in the group? It's still pretty strong. And we also asked this in another way, but we added into the survey. And of those that have obviously responded to the survey, 75% of them are saying they're finding enough benefit or sufficient benefit value, I'd think of, to continue in a group beyond RMPP. So those signs talk pretty well to farmers' perception of their involvement in the Action Network. And so just quickly, you know, we'd suggest that in thinking moving forward and having these conversations, facilitate those conversations around value, you know, retrace that group in the individual's journey. Highlight the role of the facilitator. You know, we're hearing through, you would have heard through the UMR side of evaluation, things that are important like structure, farmer-led focus, that whole peer sharing and support the trust. However, we do know that effective facilitation does make a difference, and it doesn't just happen. So have conversations around that. We need to be mindful of the stages of group. Some have been in it a while, some are just late to the starting gates, but they've still got the opportunity to build a foundation. We know that takes time, that's coming through as well. So draw on our evaluation as we bring more and more of this forward, bring it into the conversations, highlight what else is going on in other groups and what the general themes around Action Network are. I think it's important that we keep it farmer focused and farmer led. That's well and truly come through strongly in the evaluation. Farmers value that. And I guess my last point is, if you can, park the funding conversation until the end. Focus on the value. So that's all I want to touch on, Denise, without hogging too much time.
Brilliant. Warwick, can you just unmute? Sorry, you said, and the views of industry bodies. Was that in a particular part of the presentation?
Yeah, I guess I was reading the KPMG Agribusiness Agenda report, and That was for 2019, and they noted in there that the priority that was given by industry leaders that they poll had dropped quite significantly from the previous years, priority given to extension. So I'm kind of wondering whether that's reflected in the views of government and in industry bodies. You know, what's the view around extension now? Because you know, I guess it wasn't that long ago that it was recognised that we really needed extension.
Yeah, look, Warwick, I'll quickly touch on it. Let's just say that the MPIs of the world are certainly taking note of what has been taking place in Action Network and are showing a really keen or heartened by the evaluation. They've seen insight into what's been coming forward. So they're really interested in it, and I would suggest there's a stronger focus in around extension, and they're really wanting to explore how to best support that moving forward. So yeah, Denise, I don't know, do you want to add anything more there?
No, I think that covers it in terms of MPI, but it's a good point, Warwick, and something to think about. We might pick that up again. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, that's not to say that they thought it was unimportant, but it had just dropped in terms of its priority ranking. Perhaps other things kind of had become more of a focus.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, Warwick, around that is people are starting to understand what's required to make it all happen, and that's the likes of you guys on this call and investing and supporting that. So, you know, we're definitely keen to see some focus put on that and the learnings taken forward from this program. Yep. And it can be done better. That, you know, that's part of the reason Hugh's here, because there are other sectors that do this well.
Yep. And a question from Taffy, Brendan, about the beef and lamb position in terms of group support post-September.
Yeah, look, they've already indicated that they're keen to continue the support. They're still continuing to get their heads around what that might look like, but there's definitely a willingness, and we're really keen to make sure that we get the opportunity to support them.
Yeah, but I guess,
yeah.
Sorry, the comment from me is if you're talking to farmer council people or beef and lamb people, please let them know what you think would be helpful, because they don't want to just hear it from RMPP, but also from people involved in the program. And Warwick's asking, are we able to bring new members into the group? Yep, absolutely, while it's still funded. Yep. So please talk to us about that, because there's just a little bit of back end stuff that needs to be done. Yep. And certainly we're still accepting new groups. Cool. Thanks, Brendan. We'll make those slides available after this too, so we'll send them out, and if they're of use to you, please use them. And let us know if there's any other bits and pieces we can dig out. So, and as Brendan said, we'll keep on releasing some of the evaluation as we're able to. Well, so I thought it would be really good to hear from a facilitator whose group has transitioned to self-funding. So Stephen, can I hand it over to you now, and can you tell us a bit about the journey your group's been on?
Great, thanks Denise. Yeah, so a bit of background on the group firstly, because it was a little bit different how we put the groups together and how we've run the group. So this goes back into 2017 that we actually advertised. So Ag First advertised for farmers looking to be part of a group with a focus on benchmarking. So automatically we got the sort of guys that were keen on benchmarking and keen on numbers. So we got together, had a bit of a chat about, it was a chance for us to present the concept of the group, and then a chance for the farmers to feed back on what they thought about that concept, how to make up the groups, tools used, and so on. So the outcome from that meeting was we put together 2 groups, and with those 2 groups, our first meeting was November 2017. So they've been running for, well, this one group I'll talk about today anyway, about 2.5 years. So the concept was to focus on benchmarking, not so much subject matter experts in different topics. So we felt there was a lot of horsepower in the groups already. So the concept is we go to each of the farms and use the horsepower in the group and use other experts where it's appropriate if we think there's going to be a specialist topic. but really the focus is on benchmarking. And that just means we can have some really productive discussions and cut to the detail very quickly. Now, right at the start, this group said, yep, we're keen on benchmarking and we're keen to be totally open and honest too, which was a huge win. And I think that's part of the reason the group is still going. So everything is on the table with their name beside it, right down to their operating profit. So all their physical, financial performance. I'll just note before I jump into more about the particular group I'll talk about, it's not all positive either. I mean, I guess I'm sure there's a few people, I hope there are other facilitators on the call that have had positive and negative experiences. So the second group actually did fold. We had a few challenges for that in terms of some of the members and the number of members. And then we've got another group which ran the same concept on benchmarking, which was a farm manager group. So that group ran for about 2 years, used the funding and basically it come to an end, and the group was happy with what they'd got out of it. So yeah, coming back to the group, which is based in the King Country, which is continued on post RMPP and is now self-funding. So if I think about this group, they've always got on well. There's always been a fantastic culture in the group. And really everyone comes with the right mindset. But the culture, I was thinking, well, how did we get to that good culture in the group? Because I think that came up at one of our last calls. And to me, it's really, there were 2 members in the group that right from the start spoke their mind and challenged, but did it constructively. And still listened to others. And we had a lot of good banter between these 2 guys too, because they already knew each other. So it really set the tone from the start for the group to be open and honest, but also to have a bit of fun. So yeah, as far as the self-funding and how we started those discussions, so to be honest, the self-funding started when the group started in 2017. So from the Ag First camp, we put up a budget for the group to do the benchmarking. We did our first meeting and said, look, this is how we want to run it. Trust us, guys, so we'll see what you think of it. Second meeting, we then had a bit of a debrief and said, guys, do you want to keep doing this? Put up the budget, but actually said, look, first 2 years it's funded through RMPP, third year self-funded. So it was always part of that conversation. It was a bit of a nervous time for us, if I'm honest, because we said, well, we're facilitators, but we're also acting as the experts and we're not impartial. So we stepped out of the room and said, look, guys, you have a good chat about this. So it was quite positive that the group came back and said, yep, no, happy to keep going. So I guess more recently, when the rubber's hit the road and we have used the funding, then we put up the budget. This was mid-2019. And that really was prompted by the removal of the farmer contributions, that we suddenly thought, oh shit, our funding is now actually gone. So the first decision the farmers made there was, well, we'll continue with the farmer contribution anyway, and then we'll decide for 2020 where we go to as far as self-funding. So for the 2020, we put up a budget, but we also put up a plan of what we're going to do for the year, and had a good chat with the group on what they wanted to do for the 2020 calendar year. So it wasn't just a hand-to-mouth one meeting in advance. If I reflect on why the group has continued, number one to me is the culture in the group, that everyone gets on and works so well together. Everyone's engaged, everyone's sort of having their say. It's not easy for these guys when you've got 8 other farmers coming to your farm. You've put up benchmarking information which ranges from your physical performance, your scanning on your ewes, your weight gains on your cattle, through to your operating profit. And everyone's seen that before the day and is coming locked and loaded, so to speak. But again, it's the culture of how we handle that everyone's actually very open to those suggestions, which leads very nicely into Brendan's point earlier of providing value in the group. So through the discussions, I think there's been a huge amount of value provided through the suggestions made. And the benchmarking has been a good way to reinforce that value. So we can actually see for each of the farms the change in profit, the change in performance over years. A couple of other points I think are quite important is we have fun on the days. We get into a good bit of banter and have fun. There's a bit of a social chit chat as well, and we're learning. The other point I think is that having a clear purpose and direction for the year ahead, because I've been involved facilitating other groups where we have a different topic at each meeting, but it's a little bit more hand to mouth, that you have a meeting and then you decide where to next, and then you do that one and then you decide where to. So yeah, I'm not convinced we've got the same sort of long-term plan. And then yeah, just finishing really, and I am pushing benchmarking here because I think that was a real key facet for this group. But I've had 2 of the farmers say they wouldn't be part of the group if there wasn't for benchmarking in there too. Yeah, I hope that's a quick overview of the group, Denise, and the fact that we are now running fully self-funded.
That's awesome. Great overview. Any questions people want to just chuck in the chat box for Stephen, please? And then I'll call on Taffy after that. Curious of the cost. So what are you able to share into? I take it that's like for each farmer going forward. If you're able to share.
Yeah, I think under RMPP, it was about 2 years we had access to the funding for.
Yeah.
I can't think of what that was off the top of my head, but spread over 9 farms.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's continuing at a similar level, is basically what you're saying.
And that was actually a really interesting point. We put to the farmers and said, well, what do we want to do going forward? You know, this is the budget. Do we want to change the group size? Do we want to change the frequency of meetings? And the group said, no, we want to continue with 5 meetings a year. And group size was interesting. We said, look, well, we could for rough maths, double the group size and halve the cost per farm. And they said, no. Because what that means is we bring a whole lot of new people into the group, which changes the culture. And hey, we actually are getting on really well. Thank you very much. And then the second part there was they said, well, if we double the group size, that means the group comes to my farm half as often. And that's really valuable, getting the group to the farm. So, yeah.
No, that's fair. And Melissa's also curious, are you charging them annually or by meeting?
We've gone for annually, so at the start of the calendar year.
Yep. Nice. Cool. Thanks, Stephen. That's a really good little summary of the group and the process. So really appreciate you sharing that. Still, if you have any questions, chuck them in and we can check them at the end. So thanks, Stephen. I want to hand over briefly to Taffy now and just your thoughts, because your groups are kind of earlier in the stage at the moment. So just a few thoughts from you, Taffy.
Excellent. Thanks, Denise. So I've got 3 groups that I facilitate. Of my 3 groups, I definitely have a strong feeling one of them will continue because of the personalities that are there. There's a core group that know each other, and they seem to be the engine room of taking everybody else on the journey with them. So that's always handy when you've got some of those people. But just in general, with my other groups, my framework is a WWW framework. So first of all, in terms of just identifying where are we now as a group. So doing a bit of a stock take that is supported by information from the survey. So from the 360s, because there's some really good information that is coming out. So hopefully Denise and Brendan, some of that information is going back to facilitators even before they do their 360 reviews. And then they can use that information in terms of having those conversations. So that's my first W, where we now stock take from evaluation, and a stock take from a conversation within the group itself in terms of some of the success stories. It's amazing when you talk to people and actually ask them, what are the things that you've done in your business that you've picked up from the group and what the result has been? Because that starts spread those positive stories within the group, and that value that we're talking about, we won't have as much of an effort in terms of trying to promote it, because it'll be there. It'll be just stories that it's actually coming from the farmers themselves, than us trying to put forward a positive story about what they're getting out of the group. My second W really is going to be about where we want to be as a group. So asking them, where do you want to go? And there's probably multiple levels to this. So there is the group continuing with me as a facilitator, and there is the group continuing in some other shape or form may not be me as the facilitator. But I think the most important bit is to say, do they want to continue having ongoing engagement and a learning environment as a group? And if the answer to that is yes, then the conversation then is, what do we need to do as a group in terms of getting to the outcome we want? So that's kind of like my structure that I've got in my head. What I've started doing in terms of groundwork is just raising this with the primary contact farmer, that we are getting to a point where our funding, our RNPP funding is coming to an end, and we need to be looking at a self-funded model. Bearing in mind that the self-funded model could actually involve some other sponsorship from other organizations that are there. And that kind of like has changed the conversation with some primary contact farmers. They're thinking, oh yeah, so there's actually somewhere else we can go to. They don't realize that they probably have to go and do the work and find the money as well. I think a key part for me is putting this on the agenda to say we need to actually consciously have this conversation rather than getting to September and then everything stops, or we're trying to then generate momentum when we actually don't have a good reason to be meeting. At the moment, we've got a good burning platform to actually bring up these issues. So that's my approach in how I want to achieve it. I'm going to try and have some of my groups. I've got one group has got a trip away. In a previous business group that I ran, it wasn't until we actually had a trip away where people actually spend enough time together interacting and getting to know each other on a personal level, rather than just coming and hearing from an expert, having some reflection and going away. So I'm hoping that's going to galvanize some individuals within the groups to actually feel a connection with each other, such that they will want to continue having an ongoing involvement. So that's my plan. I'll tell you how it goes.
Thanks, Taffy. It's good. Good to have a plan. And I think it kind of echoes what Stephen is saying, that some of those conversations start right from the start. I've just looking, there's no questions in the chat box at the moment, but chuck anything in the chat box if you do have any questions for Taffy or Stephen or Brendan. Otherwise, we'll keep moving because I am keen to just get us into breakout rooms and just reflect on what you've heard. So the question we'll be doing, so Dusty, I'll get you to chuck the question in, please, into the chat box, was sharing ideas for getting an action group to start thinking about the future. What have you tried and what do you think would be helpful based on what you've heard? So we're going to use a Google Docs to do that. I'll just bring up the Google Docs, and if you could chuck thanks, brilliant. So the Google Docs link is in the chat box there. You can click on it and it should take you through, and you should see this, and you'll see that there's already a tip there from Simon Glennie, who wasn't able to make the call today. He shared some really cool ideas at the very end of a facilitator call a few weeks ago, and I thought it would be good just to make sure we captured that. So we've chucked that in there as a starter for 10. And Lab's saying, yeah, the importance of culture definitely has come through. So yeah, if anyone, good, okay. Not seeing any other questions. Well, I'm going to chuck you into breakout rooms and basically want you to talk through that question, share ideas and tips for getting an action group to start thinking about the future and what you might have tried or what might be helpful based on what you've heard. So join your breakout room, appoint a scribe, capture thoughts in the Google Docs. Oh, and Ben, I'll assign you to a group.
Thank you.
No worries. I might send you to breakout room 3. There you go.
Cool, thanks.
No worries. Thanks for that, Dusty. Oh, you're on mute.
Do you want me to write some more commentary down as we go along, or just any main points by anyone or anything like that?
If there is any more, yep. But otherwise, it'll hopefully be captured in the Google Docs. So yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep. Feel free to.
All right, I'll join this group and see what's going on.
Cool. Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. Great. Maybe I should have allowed 2 hours basically for this call, because there's lots of things to be talked about, and some really good thoughts there from Stephen and Taffy, and a great context setting from Brendan. I can see that you have been putting stuff into the Google Doc. I'll send it round for later so that you can keep on putting things in there. There's a few bits and pieces that you've captured, just around setting culture, ensuring conversations, having them early, those kinds of things. So yeah, please keep capturing those, and I'll send around that link. What we're going to do to finish is we were going to do an ORID in a small group in breakout rooms, but we're going to do an ORID as a big group in the chat box, just to give it a go, see how we go, given that we are going to finish very shortly. So what I'd love you to do is get your chat box up, and I'd like you to type into the chat box a word or a phrase that you recall from the last hour, and maybe something you struggled with over the last hour. So just pull up the chat box, a word or phrase that you recall from what we've covered on this call, and something you struggled with. Oh, yep. So lots of culture, adding value coming through there. Yep. And is that also something that you struggled with? So something that you struggled with as well. Adding value, stories from people at the coalface, absolutely. The power of stories, recognizing that, planning, sponsorship, yep, reflecting on the value added, funding after RMPP, good stuff. Yep. Struggling with our own value when putting forward to groups as independent facilitator, absolutely, it's a tough conversation. Another struggle, recognizing the value added to self-fund, absolutely. Any other struggles from people? Type it into the chat box. Yep, Julia's agreeing with Sarah. Sarah Bell, struggling with your own value, definitely. So that was the O and the R in the ORID. Objective question, what did we recall, a word or a phrase? A reflective question was something you struggled with. Yes, no, and I hear you, Sarah O'Connell. If only we could work out virtual chocolate. So the I, if you could write into the chat box, what's the new vantage point that being on this call has given you? Maybe it's a new perspective on something, or maybe something that you went, oh yeah, I need to remember to do that. Type it into the chat box. New vantage point, the diversity of what each group sees as value. Absolutely, Lab. Yeah, it is going to be different. The power in this room from Richard. Absolutely. Lots of really great people doing really cool things. From Sarah, taking the bull by the horns and just talking with the group going forward. Absolutely. Taffy, there will be wins and losses, and that's okay. Keep planning with the group the whole year ahead, not meeting to meeting. That's really cool. Yep. Like the conversation about setting the long range plan, not just the actions for the next meeting, definitely, which links to what Nicola was saying, and getting farmers to reflect on the value they've had so far and what they would have paid for that in hindsight. Awesome. And Sarah is agreeing with Nicola as well. Cool. Awesome. Options for other funding. Yep, definitely. Hopefully I've captured everyone there. And so the last question is a next step for you. A couple of you kind of almost covered that, but just a quick next step. What's the decision question in the ORID? Start with reflection, the journey. Yeah, absolutely, Lab. So always good to look back, reflect on what groups have been getting from the process. Getting together face to face, yes, yay, Melissa. It is cool. It's a good next step. And nice to be able to then start some of these conversations. Next meeting on farm, next step for you. Darwin, good stuff. Bring in benchmarking for environment catchment group, Nicola. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, really cool. Any other next steps for people? Chat them into the chat box. Nope. Well, fair enough. We are at 11:31 on it. Here we go. Meeting and talking about the value you've got and then the group going forward. Yep. So taking in those steps from Sarah and Richard, think, plan, get together and seeking expert help and other facilitators. Absolutely. So other facilitators around can definitely help. So cool. Okay, I will capture all of that chat and the different points and email that around to you all towards the end of today. Oh, yep, Melissa's saying look at the action plans. Yep, and reevaluate for remainder of funding and next steps. That's a really good point, Melissa. Yeah, good stuff. Reflect on what they've already wanted to get out of it. Good stuff. Well, at that point, I am going to call the call to, call the call, does that mean, that doesn't even make sense, but you know what I mean. I'm going to say we're going to finish the call. I want to thank Brendan for just giving us a bit of an overview from RMPP and putting together some of those findings and different things. I want to thank Stephen. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with that King Country group. It's really cool and really encouraging to hear from the coalface and what's possible. And Taffy, want to thank you too for your thoughts and just your 3 W's. That was really cool. Just good reflections from different stage. I've facilitated with groups at different stages. So yeah, thank you for that. And Taffy's saying planning a trip away as part of his next step. Cool. Dustin is reminding you that if you can't find action plans or can't see them, please get in touch with us because we can help with that. So Ben and Dusty will be able to get you, make sure that you can see. Don't forget to get in touch with Ben or Dusty if you do want more details on taking ownership of your financials, the workshop. Next week, we're going to do some exploration around soft skills. So I've been talking with Lab and Taffy about that. So yep, more details coming soon. Don't forget the 29th of June, Virtual Facilitators Forum, also more details coming soon. And as part of the follow-up to this, call today, I will be sending out a link from Manaaki Whenua, Landcare Research, who are doing a big survey of farmers and producers. They're wanting information from farmers about how they use advisory services as part of a research project they're doing for MPI in that advisory services work. So I'm just going to send you a little bit of information. And if you're able to, no obligation, but if you're able to and you don't mind forwarding it to your group for them farmers to fill out, that would be awesome. Or sending around your networks for Manaaki Whenua to get a reasonable number of responses. That would be really cool. Nicola's just asking, is the 29th of June a morning, afternoon, or all day? It's going to be from 10:30 till 12 at this stage, just so an hour and a half, 90 minutes. So yeah, and we'll get you those details. But yeah, there'll be blocks of 90 minutes, the sessions, but there will be a video to watch beforehand. So there'll be a little bit of pre-work for the facilitator, the virtual conference, virtual forum. Cool. Alrighty, well, thank you so much everyone for joining us on the call today. It's great to have you. Go enjoy the rest of your day and keep thinking about the future, keep talking, and I'll share all of these details and different bits as a follow-up. So thanks so much, people.